Welcome back. Disclaimer, if you hear noise in the background, that's a fan because I'm pretty hot, okay? So I apologize in advance if you hear the sound. Ready? Chapter 16. It was maybe lucky for both of us that Kathy hadn't been home when I run up the steps to her apartment, smashed my fist against the door over and over that night. Cassie knew. Things might have been said or done that could never be unsaid. When she hadn't answered the door, I texted her with shaky fingers, demanding to know where she was, but she never responded. I eventually gone home, ignoring Dean's text the way Cassie was ignoring mine, and falling into an uneasy sleep. I dreamt of red valentines and pink spray paint, wind blowing through tattered sheets of plastic, taste of gunpowder on my tongue. Woke up in my childhood bed with screams snagged deep and heavy in my chest. I got up and splashed cold water on my face, hands clenched on the sides of the pedestal sink. You said you wanted answers, I reminded my pale reflection. I should have known to be careful what I wished for. When I got to the diner, it was a full house. Cassie running interference behind the counter and Mabel taking care of tables and booths. Hey, Cassie said, sending a distracted smile my way. Sorry I didn't. I need to talk to you. I said, out back. I didn't wait for her to answer, kept right on walking down the length of the diner and through the screen door to the alley beyond. It took her a minute to join me, her face torn between concern and annoyance. I only have a second, she said. We're slammed in there. Is everything okay? I was at the refinery last night. I saw your graffiti. Cassie's head jerked back. My graffiti? You mean from years ago? Yeah, CJL plus EAD equals love forever. Cassandra Jane Lloyd, Eliza Ann Dunning. Ring a bell? Cassie's eyes closed, opened again slowly. She looked far away like she was back in the refinery, a can of spray paint clenched in her hand. God, I forgot I even painted that. In the back room at the end of the catwalk, right? Right, I said. My voice was like a whip and it snapped Cassie back to the present. It didn't mean anything, she said too fast. How could it not mean anything? What the fuck, Cassie? How could you not tell me this? My voice was spiraling higher and higher with each word, and Cassie pushed down with one hand trying to shh me, her eyes cut back toward the diner. A shadow appeared on the diner side of the screen door, and then Ryan shouldered his way outside. Hey, he said, what am I missing out here? Mabel's about to have a panic attack. Oh shit, Cassie said, I have to go help her. No way, I said, shooting my hand out and holding the door closed. She can manage for a couple of more minutes. Ryan's gaze shifted from me to Cassie and back again. This looked intense. Do I need popcorn? He pointed to Cassie. Hey, is it your turn in Greer's hot seat? Believe me, it's a good time. Shut up, Ryan, Cassie said, not even glancing at him. No, Eliza and I weren't together. We weren't in love. She had no idea that I had a crush on her, Greer. It was dumb, but for that one summer, I was obsessed. Do y'all believe her? She threw up her hands. I have no idea why. Nothing that happened when I was 16 made any sense. I woke up one morning and Eliza was who I couldn't stop thinking about. So I painted that stupid graffiti. And by the end of the summer, my crush was over. You were never over anybody that fast, I reminded her. There was always drama and fireworks. Or months of pining. You want me to believe it was magically different when you had a crush on Eliza? She shrugged. I can't make you believe anything, but that's what happened. Wait, Ryan said. You had the hots for Eliza? Did Travis know? Oh my God, Cassie said. Nobody knew. That was the whole point. It was a secret and I couldn't tell anyone. I painted it on the wall instead. My anger from the night before was fading a little with every passing second. Cassie's explanation made sense if you looked at it through a 16-year-old eyes, and yet I'd always thought of Cassie as someone who shot straight from the hip, who never bothered keeping secrets. But that had been stupid of me because everyone had something to hide. I was embarrassed, Cassie went on. I just come out the year before and now I had a crush on your sister, the straightest of straight girls. Besides, I worried you slip up and tell her and then things would be weird when I was over at your house. I knew it would pass and it did because it wasn't real. No harm done. Except there was harm done. Like finding out my father had an insurance policy on Eliza, but not on me. Like discovering Ryan knew Dylan better than he let on. Doubt crept in. Only a little, but enough to shift perspectives ever so slightly, to leave me questioning the people I'd always thought I could trust the most. I didn't understand how I got into this point where I looked at people I loved and saw only secrets. You could have told me, I said. You should have told me. Cassie's eyes cut away from mine, finding Ryan, exchanging a look I couldn't read. Same goes for you, she said after a few seconds of silence. What's that supposed to mean? I asked, but I was pretty sure I knew. I told you they knew. Ryan edged closer, the three of us forming a tense little triangle. We ever going to talk about how you're hanging around with Roy Matthews' brother? I closed my eyes for a second. Jesus, that didn't take long to get around. Did you think it would? Ryan sounded genuinely curious. Cassie saw you two chatting it up at the drive-in. She wanted to say something right then, but I told her to give you some time. I guess time's up then. I raised my eyebrows at Cassie. What are you doing, Greer? She asked. Palling around with that guy. What's the point of it? Maybe I like him. That's the first I heard. I said, trying out the words to see how they sounded, to gauge whether they were true. Ryan laughed. Are you serious? Maybe you like him? His brother fucking murdered your sister. Or has that fact slipped your mind? Fuck off, I snapped. Of course it didn't slip my mind. But he didn't kill them, you asshole. He's not his brother. How would you like it if every girl you met assumed you were like your cheating, disappearing act dad? Ooh. That's not the same thing and you damn well know it. Ryan took a deep breath. Look, Cassie and I are worried, that's all. You show up here out of the blue, start hanging around with Dean Matthews. I thought you guys were glad I was back. Not the point, Cassie said. And you know we're happy you're here. Don't pretend that you don't. Then what is the point? I demanded. I didn't know why I was angry. I'd know Ryan and Cassie would find out about Dean eventually, but I thought I'd have more time, a few more weeks or at least days, to figure out what I wanted to say, to come up with the right combination of words that might make them understand. More time to find the answers I needed. Now I felt ambushed, and that only made me want to fight back. The point is, we just want to know what the hell is going on. Cassie laid her hand on my shoulder and I jerked away. How worried do we need to be? I never asked you to worry about me. I'm fine. Yeah, fine like after Eliza died and you wouldn't stop talking about how the cops were missing something? Ryan asked. Or fine like all those years in Chicago when it was obvious to anyone with a pulse how miserable you were? Fine like that? I don't need you and Cassie to babysit me. I'm looking for answers, that's all. And Dean feels the same way, that's it. Cassie and Ryan shared another glance that made me feel childish and stupid, wondering how often they talked about me behind my back, laminating all the dumb decisions I was making. I have to go back in, Cassie said. But remember, just because you and Dean are both looking for answers doesn't mean you're on the same side. Okay. Dean back on my list, just from that comment. This time, when I walked into the police station, Sheriff Baker wasn't eating scrambled eggs. He was engaged in a slightly more cop-like behavior of explaining to a disgruntled middle-aged man why he couldn't park in the no parking zone in front of the fire station. I clocked Garrett sitting at his desk, hunched over paperwork, and another deputy in the back pouring himself a cup of coffee. The receptionist up front started to ask me what I needed, but I pointed at Baker and moved past her. "You lied to me," I said when Baker looked over and caught my eye. The whole situation didn't exactly fall silent. Let me read that again. The whole station didn't exactly fall silent, but there was a definite hush, heads turning to watch what might unfold. "Well, good morning to you too, Greer Dunny," Baker said, voice easy, but eyes a warning. He said something I didn't catch to Mr. Parking ticket, and then ushered me towards the empty interrogation room. Once the door was shut behind us, Baker signed, leaned back against it, and crossed his arms over his chest. "What the hell are you talking about?" he asked, sounding more worn out than angry. "You told me there was nothing different about the new murders." "No," he said slowly. "I didn't tell you anything at all. That's not the same thing." "I know about the heart on Addie's wrist." Baker's arm dropped fast. He pushed himself away from the door, and the alarm on his face gave me a hot rush of satisfaction. Not so tired of me now, was he? "Where'd you hear that?" he asked. "About Addie." I didn't hesitate. "Garrett, you need to do a better job picking your underlings. That dumbass can't keep a secret to save his life." Baker shook his head, muttered something under his breath. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. You've had plenty of chances." "Because it's not for you to know, Greer," he said, frustration roughening his word. "You're not a cop, and the last thing we need are civilians out here sticking their noses into things messing up the investigation." "What investigation?" I countered. "No offense, but it sort of seems like this one is going nowhere fast." "You have no idea what you're talking about. The copycat stuff, that's all bullshit, right? To throw everyone off the scent." "Why would you assume that?" he asked, brow furrowed. I opened my bag and pulled out a paper heart, laid it carefully on the table. "What in the hell?" Baker breathed, looking down and then back up at me. "I got this a month after Eliza died." My fingers skated lightly over the red paper, flipped it over so he could read the back. "Someone put it through our mail slot." "And you're just bringing it to me now?" His voice was leveled, but every word dripped with accusations. I shrugged, even though my own heart was clawing its way through my rib cage. "Last time I tried to talk to you about Eliza's murder, you had me sent to a therapist. I don't owe you anything. But when I heard about the heart on Addie, I figured it was worth letting you know." "God damn it, Greer," Baker said between clenched teeth. "Do you know who sent it?" "No." I drummed my fingers on the tabletop. "But I'm guessing this definitely throws a wrench in your copycat theory, because from where I'm sitting, the heart on Addie's arm combined with this pretty much shoots the whole random killer idea right out the window." I paused, no pun intended. Baker shook his head. The man was known for having a very long fuse, but I had a feeling I was causing him to reach the end of it. "I don't think it's a coincidence, but I do think people talk. People you told about the heart, people who saw it, people who love to gossip. This town is filled with them. It wouldn't be hard for the wrong person to get that information, use it to try and throw us off track." "I didn't tell anyone," I said, "not even my parents. I hadn't wanted to watch them read the words on it. It was bad enough for me to be haunted by them. I didn't want them haunted too." "Even if you didn't tell anybody, there's always the possibility that someone saw it. Put together the heart with something you might have said. People's memory fade over time, Greer, even yours. You may have given away more than you think." "That's bullshit," I told him. "The only people who know about the heart are you, me, and whoever put it through my mail slot." I left Dean off the list. The last thing I needed right now was another lecture. Baker signed. "Nothing stays a secret for long, Greer. The hearts aren't necessarily as important as you think they are, is all I'm saying. The one you got could have been a mean-spirited prank, and then the wrong person learned about it, like I said, left the one on Addie's arm as a way to lead us down a false path, make us assume the two sets of murders are connected. You don't really believe that, I said, mainly because I couldn't. The heart had been what I clung to all these years, the horrible, hateful clue that would solve it all. I couldn't accept that it might mean nothing in the end. Baker shook his head, his eyes never leaving mine. I'm going to ask you this one more time, Greer. Do you know who gave you the heart? No, I said, but whoever it was, they know something about Eliza's and Travis' death, and they killed Dylan and Addie. If you want to think otherwise, go right ahead, but you'll be wrong. I pushed past him and opened the door, strode strong and angry back towards the front of the station, his footsteps right behind me. Garrett looked up and caught my eyes as I passed his desk, shot me a grin, and winked. I hooked my thumb at him as I kept walking, and he's fucking Amber Stevens in exchange for not arresting her. Just another detail you missed. Baker's footsteps stopped dead. I glanced back at Garrett and gave him a wink of my own. The look on his face, dumbfounded, pissed, mortified, almost made the memory of my hand on his thigh worth it. So they trying to say the heart don't mean nothing. Okay. Turns out that the dough wasn't that bad once you had a few drinks in you. Maybe my dad had been onto something when he started coming here. Maybe the world was easier to take when you use bourbon as a shield. When I first moseyed up to the bar and pulled out a stool, Jim had seemed glad to see me, not all that concerned about me rolling in alone at 6 p.m., but the worried looks he kept shooting me were increasingly in direct proportion to the number of empty glasses lined up in front of me. What? I said, down in another gulp. Like father, like daughter, right? Bravado and belligerence barely hiding the fact that my stomach was in full rebellion. Every sip I taken was taken about ready to head in the opposite direction. How about a water? Jim didn't wait for my nod, already sliding a large glass of ice water towards me. I can take the rest of that bourbon off your hands. It took me a second to connect the voice to the person suddenly standing next to me. Dean, I said, looking up, you're here. I lowered my voice. Why are you here? You looking to get your ass kicked? Dean slid onto the stool next to me and grabbed my bourbon. You texted and told me to meet you here, and this place is practically empty. I'm not too worried about my ass. He nodded towards the water. Drink that. God, I mumbled. Everyone's so bossy. But I dutifully sipped at the water, not wanting to admit how good it tasted. What kind of drunk are you anyway? Mean, funny, head in the toilet? I'm not drunk. I'm never drunk. I paused. But if I were, I think I'd be the toilet kind. Good to know, Dean said. We're definitely cutting off the bourbon then. How about something to eat? Jim asked. I got chicken tenders or nachos. He didn't seem to mind Dean being in his bar, but I noticed he wasn't making eye contact with him either. Yes, I said, nodding too hard. My vision blurred and I covered my face with my hands and moaned. We'll take both, Dean said. You really are never drunk. You suck at this. Thanks, I said from behind my palms. He laid his hand on the back of my neck underneath my ponytail. His fingers were a cool relief against my burning skin. We hadn't talked about what happened between us at the refinery. I could feel it sitting there fighting for our attention. We stayed like that until Jim returned with our food, me breathing into my palms and Dean rubbing light circles against my neck. I lowered my hands and stared down at the nachos in front of me, swimming in canned cheese and sour cream, the top dotted with blood red salsa and jarred jalapenos. I can't tell if this looks amazing or disgusting. Go slow, Jim said, pointing at me. If you puke on my bar top, Greer Dunning, I'm putting your ass out. As I took a tentative bite of chip, the jukebox started up behind me. Garth Brooks singing about low places. Maybe he'd had the dew in mind when he wrote those lyrics. Does it always have to be this song? Dean asks every damn time I'm here. And does it have to be this loud? I chimed in, wincing. Oh, quit your belly yakking, Jim said. You're not even hungover yet. Besides, you should count yourself lucky you didn't wander in here tomorrow. What's tomorrow? I asked. 80s night, Dean said, and the volume is turned up to 11. Wait, I held up a hand. Tomorrow is 80s nights? That makes sense. That makes today, Thursday. Yep, Jim said, looking amused. He's right. You do suck at this. Oh, shit, I muttered at the exact moment the door of the do opened and Ryan and Cassie walked in like they choreographed it. I watched them notice my appearance at the bar and then register Dean sitting next to me. Excuse me. One of his arms slung across the back of my stool. Ryan's whole face tightened up and Cassie looked away. Disapproval etched across her features. A flare of anger shot through me, zipping hot and electric under my skin. I should go, Dean said, his gaze following mine. No, stay. It's fine. I pushed our untouched plate of chicken tenders towards him. We haven't even finished eating. But I knew I was full of shit. I wasn't going to be able to choke down another bite. I could feel eyes on the back of my neck. Knew Ryan and Cassie were probably huddled behind us at their regular Thursday night table, whispering about what an idiot I was. Fuck this. I slid off my stool and grabbed Dean's hand. Come on, I told him when he didn't immediately move to follow me. What about our food? Oh, good thinking. I grabbed the plate of nachos with my free hand. Mind if we join you? I asked when we reached Ryan and Cassie's table. I didn't wait for them to answer, just set down the nachos with a clatter and pulled out a chair. Take a seat, I said to Dean, gesturing at the empty fourth chair when he hesitated. I looked across the table at Ryan and Cassie. I could feel a flush working its way up my face, a combination of anger and booze. I wish I had a cold beer bottle to lay against my cheek. This is Dean, I said, eyebrows raised, daring them to say something. Dean Matthews. We know who he is, Cassie said, eyes only on me. There was a pause where no one spoke before Cassie's Kansas manners got the better of her. She glanced at Dean. It's nice to meet you. I'm Cassie. Nice to meet you too, Dean said. He had to be wondering what the hell was going on here, but he seemed okay with sitting back and letting me lead. Ryan set his beer down on the table a little too hard. What the fuck are you doing, Greer? I'm having a few drinks, eating some nachos, hanging out with my friends. What does it look like I'm doing? I couldn't tell you, Ryan said, but what I do know is that you normally barely drink. These nachos look like shit. He put one finger under the edge of the plate to lift it up and then pull his hand away to point at Dean. And he's not your friend. I opened my mouth to protest, but Dean got there first. I am actually, he said, voice easy, her friend. Or at least I'm trying to be. How can you even say that with a straight face? Cassie shot back. Because I distinctively remember sitting in a courtroom listening to you spew some bullshit about how hard your brother's life had been and how he should be spared the death penalty. Be allowed to live out his years all nice and cozy in prison while Eliza and Travis are rotting in the town cemetery. Cassie's breath huffed out of her and she shrugged off the hand Ryan tried to lay on her shoulders. I need another beer, she muttered, flagging the waitress as she walked by and pointed to her half-empty bottle. I looked at Dean, trying to telegraph an apology with my eyes. I regretted bringing him over here, regretted whatever kind of fucked up message I was trying to send to Ryan and Cassie by doing it. Because I should have known Dean was the one they were going to take it out on. But he wasn't looking at me. He was staring straight at Cassie, and that muscle in his jaw was ticking away. He was my little brother, he said finally. I was always going to try and save him. Whatever, man, Ryan said after a moment of silence. You need to leave Greer alone. You're not good for her. Hey, I said. And if I don't, Dean asked, cutting me off, then we have a problem, Ryan said, leaning forward in his chair. I looked at Cassie, expecting her to have the same disbelieving look on her face that I probably had on mine, but she was looking straight at Dean, her expression hard. Dean smiled, but it wasn't a version I've ever seen before. His lips pulled back, stark and predatory, his eyes flat. Go fuck yourself, he said, low and even and 100 times more threatening than if he raised his voice. Goosebumps erupted along my limbs. Nobody moved. It felt like nobody breathed. And then Dean stood, his chair legs scraping back, breaking the spell. He looked down at me. Stay or go? He asked. Go, I said, taking his hand. I didn't give myself a second to think about it, and I didn't look back as we walked away, out the front door of the Do and into the parking lot. I'm sorry, I said to his back, trying to match my strides to him. About them. They're being overprotective and taking it out on you. They loved Eliza too, and they mean well, but they're acting like assholes. Dean stopped next to his SUV and dropped my hand. He didn't seem angry exactly, just bone tired. All his earlier menace drained away. I can't really blame them. I know this is a screwed up situation. I shouldn't have let them get to me. He scrubbed one hand down his face, the drag of his features adding years to his age. Listen, I'm going to take off. It's been a long day. He turned to unlock his door, and I stepped forward, wrapping my arms around him from behind, laid my cheek against his back and held on. Greer, he said, voice low. I squeezed tighter, breathing him in. I like you. I wish I didn't like you so much. His steadiness, his voice, the way being next to him made me feel not so alone. It was the truth, despite everything. I didn't know him, not really, and I couldn't trust him, not fully, but I liked him anyway, more than I should, more than was good for either of us. He folded his hands over mine, his heart beating against my palms. I like you too. He took a deep breath, let it out slowly, and when he spoke, I can hear the smile in his voice. Remember that first day on the beach when you said we'd give Ludlow a collective heart attack if they saw us sitting together? I nodded against his back, and he squeezed my fingers. What about now? Aneurysm, I said, not missing a beat. Stroke, he countered. I smiled. Total organ failure for sure. Dean laughed and turned in my arms, bracketing my face with his calloused hands. When he kissed me, it was different from the kiss at the refinery. This time we knew exactly what we were doing. But like before, the heat spiraled up fast. It felt like someone had lit a burner under my feet. The instantaneous whoosh of ignition racing up my body. But as I surrendered myself to it, pushed my body into Dean's, Roy's face swam up again, a nasty mirage against my closed eyelids. Like it was his lips on mine, his hands on my body, his voice in my ear. I pulled back fast, breath panting out of me. My heart slammed against my ribs. What? Dean asked. I shook my head, took a step back. It's just, I keep thinking. I couldn't bring myself to finish my sentence. It's Roy, isn't it? Dean said, voice flat. I gestured between us. He's here, even when he isn't. I see his face. It pained me to know that I was the same as everyone else, looking at Dean and seeing only Roy. I could put a bag over my head if it would help. Laughter burbled out of me, and I leaned forward, resting my forehead against his chest. This is all the bourbon's fault, I said, my words muffled against his flannel shirt. I don't think it's the bourbon, he said, his hands running gently up and down my spine. I tilted my head back to look at him. Are we good? Dean nodded, his eyes serious. I wonder what level of fucked up it made me that a big part of me still wanted to kiss him, mold my body to his until we burned away Roy's memory. We're good. Do you want to meet up tomorrow sometime after my hangover wears off and decide where we go from here? About the murders, I mean. I hated how awkward I sounded, how awkward this felt. That has always been the one magical thing about Dean and me, the unearned, unexpected ease between us. I should have recognized how fragile it was, protected it better, and maybe now it was gone for good. He looked away. I don't know. Tomorrow's kind of busy, and it seems like you have some things you need to sort out with your friends. I waved a dismissive hand towards the bar. It's fine, really. Let's just play it by ear, huh? He said, still not looking at me. I have a couple of things I need to get done tomorrow anyway. Dean, we'll talk soon, okay? He hopped in his SUV before I could say anything more, and I stood in the parking lot and watched him drive away, his taillights growing smaller and smaller until I could no longer see them at all. Okay, that's the end of chapter 16. All right, okay. So, do y'all feel like somebody might be lying? Do you think Cassie and Eliza really didn't do anything? Because we have yet to find out what Eliza had planned on telling Greer that would hurt her. And then Cassie not being home when Greer came to confront her at her house. Was it Cassie that was watching them? And Sheriff Baker's reaction to her in the heart situation. He didn't really say anything. He just wanted to know who told her about the heart. Do y'all think it's Sheriff Baker? It'll be easy for him to, do or whatnot. But this chapter, and she still... Okay, no, they did say something about Dean not being the same. Or who Dr. Baker said that Dean might not be her friend. Dr. Baker. I meant to say Sheriff Baker. Sheriff Baker did say that Dean might not be her friend, right? So Dean is going to stay on my suspect list. I mean, they going back and forth with did he not, did he not, but he's still up there. And I think that's about it with this chapter. What y'all think? Did I miss anything? Because it really wasn't nothing going on. She confronted Cassie. Cassie said she didn't have nothing to do with it. They don't like Dean. Her and Sheriff Baker talked. Yeah, that's about it. So I'm going to see y'all in the next chapter. Bye for now.